Ladies and gentlemen, it does appear that Honkai Star Rail, specifically version 3.0 and beyond, they're finally getting fixed. It looks like the negative feedback from across the entire gacha community, people quitting the game in droves, people complaining about pretty much every single aspect of this update, and all of the underlying aspects with the game, things like the poor animation quality, things like the rampant power creep, things like the game basically becoming extremely unplayable for the average player and unwatchable for the average viewer. That is something that is finally getting addressed. So 12 hours ago, the official Honkai Star Rail devs posted something about how the Express crew has received an array of feedback from Trailblazers during the exploration of the new world. Some of this feedback concerns issues with Trailblazers' experiences with the story and exploration. We will be making adjustments and optimizations to address these issues with the aim of bringing Trailblazers a smoother journey experience. I've gone ahead and I am popping open the update on the side over here, and we're just going to go ahead and take a look. So they've received all that feedback, and they've heard that from the feedback, the Amphorius main story contains excessive lore exposition and too much reading, resulting in feelings of fatigue and tedium. So they kind of give an excuse for it.
Amphorius has a complex design, and during development, we wanted to ensure
blah, blah, blah. Hey, they're just giving an excuse for all the rampant yap that's in the game. So in response to this feedback, they're going to be giving a skip button. It's not going to be a fully fledged skip button where, you can just go ahead and completely omit lines of dialogue from the story. It's going to be more of a skip button where before heavy exposition begins, you'll be able to select the dialogue choice that just goes ahead and lets you omit it completely. And let's be honest, ladies and gentlemen, there is a reason for this. And I'm going to show you some statistics about the game, specifically on Twitch. So as we can see over here, this is the Twitch tracker for Honkai Star Rail. You can see the game started all the way back here, January, March, blah, blah, blah. Had some big peaks, had a lot of viewers, a lot of different channels, looks like a lot of bots. And you can see over here, right? This was a pretty solid peak for the game. 7,000, 8,000, 7,000 viewers across May 2024 and a couple of months before that. This was Amphorius. This was their version 3.0 update. Their 3.0 update gained about 1,400 additional viewers over December. Over, quite literally, some of the worst updates that the game has ever received. If you're not familiar with it, this was the time frame of the banana patch, which was widely considered one of the worst patches the game has ever had, with the filler quest that was so bloated with dialogue, had so much exposition, made so little sense for the average player to experience. Oh, sounds a little bit like 3.0. Sounds a little bit like 3.0 and the troubles that we had there. As well as this patch over here, 2.7, which was, again, filled with exposition, absolutely no combat. You had one fight across this entire story of the patch. The entire story of the patch, you had one battle, and it was at the very end, and they simply recycled the Sunday boss that you fought back in fucking April or May earlier this year. So these two patches were awful. Let's be honest, from a story perspective. These two patches were terrible for the viewer experience, terrible for the player experience. But guess what? They repeated the same exact thing in version 3.0. You want to know why 3.0 was basically as bad, if not worse, than these prior patches? It's pretty simple, ladies and gentlemen. Because you didn't complain enough. Because players didn't complain enough. They did not see the writing on the wall. What they should have done, right, was they should have started complaining about here in September, and complaining a lot. They should have stopped spending money on the game. I am pretty sure that these updates that we're seeing over here, they're really only occurring because people have decided to stop spending money on the game. And the thing is, if this had happened back in 2.6 or 2.7, it might have been in time to save version 3.0. And you can even tell from here, we got Google Trends over the past 12 months. We're seeing these big peaks over here in May, March, June of 2024, and this is fucking Amphorius. This is your new version update. This is version 3.0 worldwide. That was the reception because you shoveled them garbage and they got garbage again. And now nobody is hyped for the game. Nobody cares. Nobody wants to play it. And guess what? Nobody wants to watch it either. That's how bad the patch was. And I'm going to be honest, there are some reasons for this. We didn't get enough feedback to the devs. Y'all didn't stop spending money on the game. And let's be honest here. When we're getting reviews like this, for the patch, and we're saying that the patch is overhated. And we're simply rating it super high when objectively, by pretty much every measure, the game fucking sucks. There are some problems. We're overglazing a bad product. We're not giving it a chance to improve. This review, I'm not even going to dive into it, but a rating like this by Mr. Pokey, this is the definition of toxic positivity. And when every CC in the space is doing something like this, there is a problem that occurs with the game. It doesn't improve. And the toxic positivity that the game received across its worst version updates that made the game unplayable and unwatchable. If that toxic positivity wasn't there and you were actually giving the devs the critique they needed to improve the game, and you stopped glazing a shitty product, 3.0 might have been saved, might have been playable, but unfortunately, it is not. And I'm going to show you all a game that did it right. December, 1,100 viewers for Wuthering Waves. January, average of about 5,000. This, ladies and gentlemen, is what it looks like when a game actually takes critique seriously. When a game gets called out on potentially bad or limiting features, or given actual improvements, not overly glazed and congratulated for a bad update, they deliver something good. They deliver something that improves upon the game in every single way, instead of some garbage that stagnates. And now, as you can see, for the month of January, Wuthering Waves 2.0 was quite literally more popular, more viewed, more engaged with than Honkai Star Rail 3.0. That's crazy. It's crazy what can happen when you're not rating things overly high when the product is genuinely bad. When you're being honest about what issues there are with the game, and you're giving devs the need to improve. And guess what? They have improved. They have improved immensely. And while the February numbers aren't looking that great, do realize it's about 5 days into February, and we have a patch coming out. Honestly, for a patch coming out in about 10 days for Wuthering Waves, these numbers actually look pretty good. You're gonna see a spike in here in about 2 weeks, guaranteed, once 2.1 launches and we have Brant and Phoebe on the roster. And so, ladies and gentlemen, do keep in mind that's the framing behind these updates. It might be too little and it might be too late, but at least they're happening. And it's only happening because of the massive amount of flame that these devs received for the absolute garbage steaming shit pile that was version 3.0. So with all that context of why they're actually making these changes, I'm 100% certain 3.0 did not do financially well because people thought the update was shit. Let's keep going and get through the rest of the changes here. So, like I mentioned, it's not going to be a full skip button, but they're finally giving players the opportunity to get through all of the exposition bullshit and actually experience the story. Because guess what? Pretty much all players aren't actually listening to any of this garbage. They're not listening to any of this garbage. They don't like doing all of these pointless dialogues where you're just given forced options on what to do, nothing actually works, and then you just get story progression beyond that. It's a waste of time. You don't feel like your time is being respected. And at the same time, they will also look to arrange and present missions in a more reasonable manner and reduce tedious narrative experiences like the black screen with white text. This was their literal, this was like, if this was Wuthering Waves, this was the Forte circuit. It had no cooldown. It just came up whenever it felt like it was whenever it felt like it was right to use. And my, oh my, it made the storytelling experience one of the worst things we've ever seen in the entire genre of gacha games as a whole. So thank God they might actually start fixing it. Next up, they got the mission puzzle solving issue. They went ahead and they realized we should have achieved a better balance between puzzle solving and story, with puzzles also containing too many steps. This too often resulted in puzzle solving interrupting the flow of the story and detracting from the experience. Yes, people wanted to, in story mode, go through the story, and in puzzle mode, they want to do puzzles. But when you force somebody to do something that they don't want to do, while they're doing something they do want to do, they get pissed. They get mad. And thank God we had creators like Gacha Smack, who have HSR as one of their main games, actually calling some of this shit out, and actually calling out how unplayable and how clunky it makes the overall experience, instead of overly glazing it. And so with that, they're finally making some changes over here, talking about all the different zones where it's going to be fixed, about how like things like the final battle are going to be a lot more seamless to get to. They can just talk to people and engage in battle instead of solving all the puzzles. And they're also going to fix the map. They're going to optimize the lengthy and complex map pathing for the overall story and just make it more seamless to actually get through all the different story beats. And maybe that complexity is going to be available at the end of the story. Right? And so with that, to reduce any negative experiences caused by the above issues and make sure that the overall quality meets everyone's expectations, we are continuing to polish and fine-tune upcoming versions of the game. regarding existing content, and this is the shittiest part. This is the funniest part. And this is why, ladies and gentlemen, I was saying you all should have raised the issue with this garbage fucking storytelling earlier. Regarding existing content for version 3.0, we will proceed with the aforementioned adjustments. All that stuff that they were just talking about, they're not going to be in the game until version 3.2. You have to wait 3 months, 3+ months, until version 3.0 is fixed. You have to wait 3 months. So if you haven't played it yet, if you've been holding off on version 3.0 because you heard the update wasn't that good and that the story was clunky, well, you'll be able to play it in 3 months. So, like I said, imagine, right? Imagine content creators and the community had talked about how shitty the storytelling was, how clunky the experience was earlier. They had simply complained more. Then maybe these updates would have simply happened in 3.0. It's taking 3 months to release a quality of life that makes the story playable. This toxic positivity, ladies and gentlemen, it killed the game. You not calling out bullshit, you not calling out a terrible patch again and again, like we're playing fucking Winter Soldier in Marvel Rivals, is what is now actively killing the game. And there's something just so fucked up with the workflow of Honkai Star Rail to the point where they can't even make basic updates like this within a decent time span. You want to know when this should be happening? This should be happening in version 3.1. Or honestly, this should be hotfixed within the next week. These changes should be in the game within 7 days. But instead, it's going to take over 3 months to make changes that should have simply been in the game on release. They're just telling you that it's basically fucked. The entire experience is cooked. What's the point? Is this basically the devs saying, don't play the game until 3.2. Just don't play the game until 3.2. Do not do the 3.0 story until 3.2. That doesn't make any sense. Most players are just gonna have to go through this because they're gonna want to play the 3.1 story when it releases. Or maybe they just won't want to fucking play the 3.1 story at all because of how bad 3.0 was. But at this point, these changes just feel useless. If they're going to arrive this late, the changes quite literally almost feel useless. And so maybe this is just a cry out from the devs. We fucked up. Don't touch this game for a couple of months, and maybe we'll fix it later down the road, because that's what it looks like here. And now we've got the last piece of the puzzle. And probably, maybe, the best actual part of this update. Or of this developer radio. Excuse. Whatever you want to call it. And Forest is a year-long journey, and these story and puzzle-solving optimizations are just the beginning. The Express crew will continue to optimize content. Blah, 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 blah. We're just gonna glaze ourselves a little bit, talk about how excited we are to fuck up the game even more. To name some examples, we'll be adding richer combat gameplay and challenge goals to the game. Who knows what that means? In addition, issues close to Trailblazers' hearts, including difficulty deploying older characters on the battlefield, and the strengthening of these older characters are already on schedule. So, you might view this, ladies and gentlemen, as them buffing older characters, as them directly improving the strength of older characters and making them more playable. Because the community at large was literally saying that, yes, the power creep is fucking bad. It feels awful to use older characters, and because of the balance changes the devs have made with things like Super Break, Acheron, Fei Zhao, and all these fucking characters and archetypes, the game is now unplayable for half of the roster, if not more. And so it looks like they might be making those buffs. Turns out, again, we do remember that conversation, that debate we had with Mr. Pokey, about how he was saying, right, as one of the biggest CCs in the space, there's absolutely nothing wrong with the game, and that there doesn't need to be any changes made to older members of the roster. Just pull all the new strong characters. It turns out even the devs realize they fucked up here, and they might need to actually start buffing older characters. So maybe Silverwolf is going to be playable. Maybe these rerun banners aren't a complete waste of time and aren't going to brick your account. And so, ladies and gentlemen, it turns out bullying works. But the only way to really bully these devs is to financially bully them. Because I don't think 3.0 went very well at all. I don't think their rerun banners are doing well at all. Because what's the point of pulling on rerun banners when the characters all fucking suck? It turns out that making all your older characters suck balls doesn't lead to them actually selling, because there's no reason to ever pull on them ever again, because they don't do anything. And so it's actually in Hoyoverse's best financial interest to buff these characters. However, there's always the monkey's paw. Hoyo, as we all know and we're all familiar with, they always do something to fuck you over in exchange for giving you something. And so the way that I'm reading this, right, the strengthening of these older characters, this might mean that they're releasing tailored supports. This might mean that they're releasing new limited supports that only work with the specific unit. Imagine, right? For Jing Liu, oh, a new support that when 3 of your teammates lose HP at the same time, buff the next incoming character's action by 90%. Oh boy. I bet that sounds fun, doesn't it? Or maybe for Blade, we'll have a little bit of, oh, if the active character's HP is reduced to 50% or lower, improve their critical damage by 900%. Oh boy. Or maybe Sela. If the target of this buff receives an action advance, immediately win the fight. 180 pulls, baby. Hey, maybe that's what we're gonna need to make our older units playable. So God forbid they do that. Hopefully they actually just do something to fix the multipliers of all the 1.0 units they absolutely binned. Hopefully they do something that turns Silverwolf into an actually better version of Pella instead of a worse version of Pella. And we just gotta hope that that's the route that they're gonna go down. Buffing the characters and not just releasing another limited support that makes them slightly playable and that you have to spend for. Because guess what? People have already spent. People have already grinded for these fucking characters. Hopefully it's not gonna be some
Scholar Lost in Erudition
buff for Jing Liu that increases her damage by 5% and still doesn't do anything for her in the actual content. Hopefully. We just have to see. Feedback has always been extremely important. Shut up. No, it's not. The only feedback that these devs listen to is the feedback of their wallet. That's the only thing. And you all have to keep that in mind. If you want this game to get better, you need to shit on it. If you want this game to be more playable, stop giving reviews like this. Be honest about the actual state of the game. Be honest about what the community is actually feeling. And you won't see a massive drop-off like this for a game that, by all metrics and all measures, should be experiencing nothing even close to this. This is pathetic. The fact that 3.0 was received like this on Twitch is genuinely pathetic. And you all know that too. This is actually embarrassing. This was the most embarrassing update in the history of gacha gaming, at least within the last 5 years. So there is an official translation coming out from the actual CN version of that update, talking about how the older units are going to get improved. It looks like this will be addressed by buffing the old units themselves with no further details. These are nice words, right? This is maybe something nice to see from the company. However, Hoyoverse has shown us a lot of nice things in the past. Things like Genshin's artifact selector. Things like Genshin's amazing 20 pulls on their Lantern Right patch. They have a track record of dangling something nice in front of your face and then proceeding to give you dog shit in exchange for it. They have a track record of showing something that's awesome, that's amazing, and its actual implementation is horseshit, terrible, garbage. And so with that, he says, this means that they'll be buffing the actual unit, not releasing a new 5-star version. Hey, what if that is what it is? I think that releasing a new version of Blade or a new version of Jing Liu would fit under themselves because they're the same person. And you know how this company has a track record of the players over when they're adding quality of life. And so with that, I'm going to have to see it. And at this point, the players should have to see it to believe it. Don't take these flowery ass words for granted. We've already seen what these devs are capable of. We've already seen what they've done in their prior titles. They need to prove themselves first before we should have any faith in a claim like this. Because we've all seen what they've done in the past. And it's always a monkey's paw. It's always something good in exchange for something dog shit. And it happens every single time. And so if they do actually buff these units with no strings attached, I'll congratulate them for it. But I highly doubt that that's how it's going to be implemented. So with that, let me know what you all think. Peace out.